Joining us today, Pragya Kapoor. She's a film producer, an environmentalist, someone who's extremely passionate about the arts, sustainability, and business. Pragya, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, you just have so much going on that I don't even know where to start, right? I'm like, should we start with your first passion? And then I said, but she's equally passionate about both. So,
Yeah.
let's start from when you actually moved back to India. What was the plan at the time and what ended up happening?
It's very funny you're asking me that question because I've been thinking about that a lot. Normally when someone asks me why I moved to India, I answer that I don't know. I just came here, and lately I've been thinking about it, and I realized that I think the reason I came to India was because I needed change.
You grew up in Sweden.
Yes, I'm born and brought up in Sweden, in a very small town, and I think when you're from such a small place, you don't realize what the problems are. Like I wouldn't call Sweden a racist country, but there is a lot of underlying racism, and growing up I was bullied a lot. So I'm quite amazed I'm sharing this with you now, but just because that was the first question you asked me. I never knew why I was bullied, and that's always been something on my mind, that why. And I think it was somewhere because I was different, somewhere because of my skin color, and I think it's taken me now 30 years to understand what were the reasons, and I am not saying that about everyone because I have some really amazing Swedish friends till date, but this time when I went back to Sweden, to my hometown for the first time after many years, I realized I was met with a lot of resistance from a lot of people who knew me, who I thought would be happy for where I am today.
Yeah.
But instead, they kind of just shut me out, and I was very amazed at what's happening. But then I realized it's a mindset of people from a very small town who haven't been outside, who haven't seen the world. And I think somewhere at the age of 18, 19, when I moved to India, I somewhere from within felt that I needed to break out of this, because if I get stuck here, I'm just gonna be below everyone at all point. And I remember something that my mom told me as a kid. She always told me that, Pragya, you have to work 4 times harder than anyone else. Firstly, you're a woman, but secondly, you're a brown woman, and you're living in a white country.
Right.
So you have to work so much harder to do anything in life, and for you just to be accepted as an equal. So I think that's always played on my mind, that if I do not work hard, I'll not achieve, I will not be able to live my life to the fullest. And I think I felt that somewhere there. I think I really somewhere I know you're young, but somewhere in your intuition, you know that if you want to do something in your life, you have to get out of there. And I don't think I gave the young Pragya enough credit for the move she made, because when you're 18, 19, you move from one country to the other. I'd never been to Bombay, and all my family relatives were in North India, and I came here with 2 suitcases, not knowing what to expect. But now when I look back, I'm like, I think she knew somewhere that if she stayed back here, she would never really know her true worth.
Right.
And I think that's why I came.
You came with hope, and you came to the city of dreams.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you started off, I think you were looking at maybe event management. You'd studied acting, actually, and Bombay is the world for film, entertainment, and all of those opportunities. But you ended up taking a very different path.
So I actually came here to study event management.
Okay.
I was somewhere hoping that when I go back to Sweden, I'll go back to college and I will study event management. So I wanted to do take a year off and explore India, but at the same time do it with a purpose. So I chose to do a course in event management here. Acting came in much later.
Okay.
I think I had been here for at least 2-3 years, and a lot of people. So actually, I'll tell you, it's actually a very funny story, and it has only to do with money. Because you have to survive in a city like Bombay.
Exactly.
So when you work in events, especially at that time, per day you would maximum make like what, $2,000-3,000 a day.
Right.
And if you do modeling or something, you make 10-15 grand a day.
Right.
So for me, it was like, okay,
Yeah.
it was more like, you know, a money thing, because a lot of people would ask me that, you know, oh, you're so pretty, you should, why don't you model, or, you know, why don't you act? And I was like, yeah, as long as you're getting, you don't give me money, why not? So for me at that time, it was more just about survival. It was not something I was passionate about. There was a time where I did want to take it seriously, which is when I studied acting.
Okay.
Because I have this thing that if I do something, I want to do it 100% or I don't do it at all. So it's an extreme. I can't do something just half-hearted. So at that point, I gave it my all. I tried it out and I realized it wasn't for me. I also felt that, you know, when you are in a position of privilege, when these opportunities are coming to you because of where you are, you are somewhere standing in front of someone who wants it more than you. And if you don't want it that much, I think the best thing you can do is to just step aside and give the person who actually wants that opportunity a chance.
True.
So I chose to step away because I didn't feel as passionate about acting as I feel about all the other things I'm doing in my life.
Sure. So you ended up, you were doing all of this, and in a few years, you ended up meeting Abhishek, who you said you kind of knew already.
Yeah.
And then what came first? Was it the advent into film production, or was it more about sustainability? And you also had your first child around then. It all kind of came together, didn't it?
Yeah, it all happened at the same time with a big bang. I think the first thing that happened was, of course, once I started dating Abhishek, was filmmaking.
Yeah.
He's someone who is extremely passionate about his work, and I think somewhere that just, you know, rubs off, and you can just feel, you want to thrive in that energy of his. You want to, like, you want a piece of what he has. So it just naturally comes that anyone who works with him, you know, will vouch for this, that, you know, they just want to feel what he's feeling in that moment. And I think living with him, I also got that attraction that this is something that I want to do and explore. But I didn't know in what capacity. I definitely knew it wasn't acting. But because I had an events background, because that was something I really enjoyed, I felt like production would be the closest to that.
Okay.
And that's how we started Guy in the Sky Pictures. And we did our first film, Fitur, which was more of a learning experience for me at that point. But, you know, once I started, it's now going on, and it's a great journey, and I'm, you know, learning with each film. Every film is an experience, and I think I'm very fortunate again because I've been working with Abhishek. Every film of his is so different that, you know, you can't get into a certain pattern. You have to, you know, reinvent the wheel each time. You have to learn new things. You have to explore and grow, you know, with each film, and I find that extremely fulfilling. So I'm very lucky.
That's fantastic, and I'm going to talk more about that. I want to rewind a little bit just to really color the picture, right? So when you came to Bandra and you were with this young girl and with the 2 suitcases, right?
Yeah.
Where did you figure where to go, what to do? Did you have a friend? Did you go house hunting? You know, and how was life different to, I mean, I know you said you were in a small town in Sweden, but did you have to rough it out in any sense in those early days when you came to Bombay?
Of course. I mean, big culture shock because a small safe town in Sweden to a big city like Bombay, I don't think I'd ever seen a bigger city at that age before that. And I think the main issue I had, which was reverse of what I was having in Sweden, is that here everyone would see me as an Indian because, of course, my skin color and, you know, I speak Hindi. But inside my head, I was Swede.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that was, I've never felt as Swedish as I felt when I came to India. Because in Sweden, you're always told, like, oh, you're Indian. And here you're like, okay, but I don't feel like I fit in.
Right,
like, you know, what am I? So you're having this whole, you know, identity crisis
issue.
going on.
Yeah.
And I think I had a lot of issues fitting in and following a system or the, like how everyone around me was, because I think I somewhere were brought up to follow my own voice and do things the way I wanted to. And I think now when I'm looking back, maybe I was not as understanding towards the people around me, and the culture that I was introduced to, because I was very stuck up in my ways.
Okay.
But at that point, I just felt like, no one is understanding me, and I think it was really hard initially. I did rough it out.
How did you make connections? How did you start to meet people? Everyone wonders, right, how to do it when they land up in a new city, and especially Bombay.
I think Bombay is a city full of opportunities. Anything can happen. I came here, actually my dad had some friends who knew someone who lived here. So via I came, they picked me up from the airport, and I stayed with them initially. Then I got my own apartment. It was in Goregaon East, in an under construction building on the 8th floor.
Not very glamorous.
Not very glamorous. There was no lift, there was no water. You needed water, you have to like walk up 2 floors or walk down 2 floors. And being a Swede, I can't eat spicy food, but all I could afford was like vada paos. So I did rough it out. I didn't have enough funds to, travel by train or auto, so we would walk sometimes just to wherever we had some work. So I think the first 2 years.
Okay, you really
roughed it out. Yeah, so it's been like step by step, right? So, I mean, initially, especially because of the field
that experience must have made you stronger, though.
Absolutely, I think it was the best experience of my life, because coming from a place like Sweden where everything is provided for, and I always had a job, so I had tons of money growing up. It was never an issue. But in Sweden, there is no concept of saving.
Right.
So when I came here, I literally blew up all my money because everything seemed so cheap, right? With the currency difference and all of that. So initially, I just spent all my money, and then I realized that I don't have any money left, and because what happens?
You couldn't ask Dad to keep sending you.
No, I've never been that person.
Exactly.
He did help out because it was quite tough. But in Sweden, what happens? You live paycheck to paycheck, and you know that every second the money is going to hit the bank. So you never think about where the money is going to come from. So all of a sudden, I realized I spent all my money, and what do you do? So then you start working, and then you start understanding this whole aspect of saving. These are not things they teach you in school. I don't know why. Why can't you just teach people how to manage their finances in school? They don't do that. So, I mean, all of a sudden I'm budgeting, and I'm not earning more than 25-30 grand a month, and you have to pay your rent within that, your food, your clothes, your everything. So like, there wasn't much to play around with, which is actually why I got into modeling. Right. I was like, okay, I need the money.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So it did definitely rough it out quite a lot, but it's the best thing that I did, and I think I did it at the right age. Because if you ask me to do that today, I might not be able to, do it. But somewhere in my head, I know that if I ever have to do it, I can do it because I've done it.
Sure.
So it was an interesting time, and I really appreciate it. And everyone that I met, and everyone that stood by me, supported me, taught me what it is to live in India. And I think it also helps me today with my current work in the environment field, because I do work a lot with low-income households, and I think I understand the way they live and the way they are much better, because I've somewhere seen their journey along the way, which makes it easier to be, have any conversation with them, because somewhere they feel like you get them.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Tell us about your work when it comes to, the environment and sustainability, and what you're looking to achieve. What are the kinds of things you've done?
Started after I had kids, actually.
Okay. How old are your kids? First, tell us that.
I have a 5-year-old and I have an 8-year-old.
Okay.
So they're still quite small. Okay. But I think when I had my first son, I wanted him to have the life I had. But I'm in a completely different country. But I wanted the parks. I wanted, him climbing trees, playing in nature, being outdoors. There wasn't many options around, and whatever options were there were filthy and run down, not well maintained, and I think that is when I started getting more aware, because these were things I was taking for granted in Sweden, right? Cleanliness, hygiene, recycling, these were just there, and you were taught it in a very natural way. So I never really gave it a thought until I had my own kids. And that's when I understood the value of it and why it's required. And I tried to somewhere apply whatever I learned over there here. And I think I just started questioning my entire existence at one point. That because, you know, when you are in the media field, everything is larger than life. I mean, you know how it is. And especially when you're in a city like Bombay or Delhi, where the whole conversation is about having more.
Sure.
Now, all of a sudden, I'm questioning all those values. You know, I've had the big birthday parties, I've had the lavish setups, the new clothes and the designer this and that. And I'm like, is it really worth it? Like, what is the consequence of this, right? And where is it all going? And the thing also, again, the same thing like I had with acting, that once I start studying something, I just get into it. So once I started learning about the environmental impact our daily lives have, it just kind of got to me, and I couldn't see the world the same way anymore. And I knew somewhere that, you know, my life would be fine, but what am I giving my children, you know, and what am I leaving for the next generation? And I just couldn't live with that. So I felt like I needed to do something. So the first thing I did was to change my own life. My mom always said, practice what you preach. So if you don't practice it, don't go and tell people about how they should be living their life.
Right.
So I think that's where I started. The first thing I got was a bamboo toothbrush. Started brushing my teeth with that, and then that thing led to another. You start finding, you know, alternatives and solutions for different things in your life. Reduced my waste, started recycling.
Sure.
And then my youngest son's first birthday was around the corner, and I was like, I can't do one of these birthday parties again.
So what did you do?
I had a beach cleanup.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It was quite amazing actually, because I did not really know what I was getting into. I just had seen some people, you know, clean beaches on social media, and I called up a friend who then got me in touch with a couple who still run, I think, the Mahim Beach cleanup in the Neel and Rabia. And I called them up and I was like, hey, my son is turning 1 and I want to have a party on the beach as a cleanup. And they were like, are you sure you know what you're talking about? Have you been to a beach cleanup? And I was like, no, but you know,
that's what I want to do.
That's what I want to do, right? So why don't you just come and have a look first before you like get all the kids coming to the beach? And it was filthy. Abha, it was bad. It was really, really bad. I'd never seen anything so bad.
I can only begin to imagine. Yeah. I mean, we can see it, the waste on many of our beaches.
It just, and I remember I asked them this question, and the answer really, you know, stuck by me was that, I asked them like, but why is it like this?
Yeah.
And the answer was, Pragya, no important people come here.
Oh, really?
And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, if you see Chowpatty or any other beach, it's all taken care of. But this beach is ignored because no one important come here. But I was like, what about the people around? They all come here. We are not important enough. And you'll have two lanes down, like literally 2 kilometers down, all the other beaches, Dadar and all, very clean, neatly taken care of, because there are of course influential people who live there. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna get every important person I know to come to this bloody beach.
Exactly.
And that's what I did for my son's birthday. I called all my friends from the film industry and I told them that you have to come and clean this beach. It's my son's birthday. You have no excuse. You have to show up. And they all showed up.
Who all came?
All of my friends. I'm extremely grateful. Suzanne was there, Angad, Neha, you know, Abhimanyu was there. I mean, there was so
and
many.
Everyone got into it.
Yeah. A lot of them. Runal Thakkar was there.
Did it create the kind of impact that you wanted?
It did, more than I thought. It actually created a huge impact. I had media publications calling me up, giving us front page coverage, full half pages and full pages, and it was just everywhere. And I was so grateful because I know how much money that actually costs, right, to get those pages. But they were like, no, what you're doing is incredible and it deserves it, and we need to talk about this. So it got a lot of attention for the right reasons. And I think post that there was no stepping back. I remember a friend of mine called me up a few weeks later saying that, oh, I want to donate to you. And I was like, why? It's like, no, I want to donate to you. I was like, darling, I'm doing really well in life. I'm very happy where I am. I don't need your support, but thank you very much. It's like, no, to the work you're doing, to the cause. And I was like, what? I was like, I don't know. I was like, he's like, don't you have an NGO? And I was like, no, what is that? Like, what do you mean I don't have an NGO?
And that's how it started.
And that's how it started. That one phone call
Brilliant.
Just created Ek Saath, and you know, the whole point of Ek Saath and calling it Ek Saath is for people to know that it is about bringing people together. It's not about what I do. It's about what we can do together.
Yeah.
And if you can do it better than me, you please go ahead and do it. I'll support you.
Lovely.
You know, it's not about what we can do or you know, showing off how great we are.
Sure.
In fact, it's about a community building where everyone is a part of it.
Fantastic.
And everyone, you know, is a stakeholder. So that was how Ek Saath then was founded, and now, you know, we are turning 4 now this February.
And have you been, what are the other kinds of initiatives you've been doing? I know you've also translated this work onto film sets, because you had one of the first zero waste film sets, which is unheard of, and I think that must have been a fairly insurmountable challenge. This I don't think it's ever been done before.
Not in India. I think of whatever knowledge I have, that is the first film, and I don't think anyone has disputed it also, so I'm assuming it is the first film. So, you know, once I started this, and again, like what my mother would say, that practice what you preach. When we did Kedarnath, we made a movie which talks about the environment, it talks about sustainable development, but at the same time, while making that same film, we are wasting tons of water, tons of resources, and being literally very thoughtless about it.
Right.
And I think that kind of got to me, that how can you be preaching something and telling people that, you know, you should be sustainable in the way you are developing, taking care of the environment, this and that, but at the same time, you're doing the opposite while creating that film. So when we did Chandigarh Kare Aashiki, I just couldn't go ahead without making sure that we created the least amount of waste and damage while making that film. And we shot it in the pandemic. So it was one task extra added to that, and on top of it, Chandigarh at that point, I remember there was a strike with the waste workers. So there was no one picking up.
Oh my God, yeah.
But I had an amazing team. Scrap was on board. Divya, who's the founder, a very dear friend of mine now, she handled the entire waste and made sure everything was recycled. Food was donated or composted. Just figuring out how we could reduce our waste, and you know, she was a huge help in that. And even our next film, we have done the same, where we have made sure that, you know, we create the least amount of impact while creating the film.
What's been the hardest thing about waste management, about, you know, gathering people for the cause, about maybe identifying where to go first?
I think mindsets. I think somewhere in India, it's very tough to convince people to get their hands dirty, because they feel it's, you know, unhygienic, which it is. I understand that to a certain extent, which is why we wear gloves, which is why we, you know, make sure that we are extremely safe in the way we work, to make sure that, you know, people are safe. But I think mindsets, for people to take onus of, you know, the impact they are creating themselves. I think people have a really tough time letting go of the privileges and, you know, downsize a little bit. I think we are too used to showing off our wealth rather than, you know.
Yes.
I don't know how to.
Yeah, it is a cultural phenomenon. It is true. Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to be polite. Yeah. But it is. I mean, if I'm just going to be honest with you, I think it's ridiculous the way we live our lives, the way we need to show everyone our worth continuously, or what we have and how much we have, and the whole thing of, you know,
I thought Bombay was better than Delhi, so I
think it's better than Delhi. I would say that very proudly as now a Bombayite. I definitely think things are better here because I don't know. I think just culturally people are more focused on their work rather than you know, showing off what they have. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's there and it's actually growing, which is concerning, because Bombay was not like that maybe 10 years ago. Now I'm seeing it more and more that, it's all about what you have, which car you travel in, what you're wearing,
it's
which
the
party.
affluence of the
and then the aspiration, right?
That's
People
growing.
then aspire for that.
Yeah,
you see
absolutely.
the youth looking up to that, thinking that that is the way of life, and you'll see people not having enough funds to make ends meet, buying a handbag on EMI, and just putting themselves in a really negative economic cycle just to portray.
We are seeing spending increasing in the economy.
And it's not going to sustain, and it's not going to create healthy mindsets for the the young people out there, because they are going to believe that you're only successful if you have these things, and I think that is very dangerous. And that's why I feel the main aspect is mindset change. It's very hard, because no matter which society strata you go to, everyone is aspiring to have more. And just to make them understand, especially when you talk to people from low income areas, that why are you telling me? Talk to that person. You're telling me to lower my waste and not to accumulate things, but look at the other people, look at what they are doing. They have everything, but they still want more. So it's a very difficult conversation.
So when you go to some of these societies, is it because you're helping to clean up that particular area?
Correct.
And
so we have multiple projects on at Ek Saath currently. We have beach cleanups that are going on every weekends. We have a cleanup which is not weekly, but we are trying to get it at least bi-weekly, because it's at the Elephanta Caves, the Elephant Islands. So you need a lot more infrastructure to make that happen, but that's a site we are working on. And then we have a low income area in Vadala called Kokri. So the aim there is basically to help the mindset change, because these are really hard-working people living in extreme conditions, and there is not enough support to help them, live in a hygienic environment. And
do the civic authorities help?
Of course, they do. They do. I think what happens with the with the government bodies is that they really want the change, but they don't always know how to do it. And the moment you start showing them the way, they always come together and they help you through the process, which is why we are able to do the work we do. They help us with all the permissions required, and whatever on-ground requirements are there. They're like, you lead the way, tell us what to do, we will help you out, whatever we can. So there's a lot of support.
So what do you say when they tell you to go and deal with the rich?
I think because somehow they do relate to me, and they feel like when I
you're
talk,
empathetic, and I think you're able to
when I talk to them, that
communicate.
It's like a friend talking, right? So, and I spend a lot of time with them, and my team spends a lot of time there. So there's a lot of trust building that happens, and when they start seeing the impact, is when they get won over. And the best part is the kids, because the kids come first, and the kids want the change, and they want to be the change, and they they join in. Like, so when we have our cleanups at Kokri, they're like this 6-7 kids that come every single weekend. And they come and they get there and they'd be like, Didi, idhar aao, idhar you uthao. You're like going around, and you're picking up the waste with these kids. And so initially you'll feel like, okay, it's only the kids, but had the parents not allowed them to come and do it, they would not do it. So they might not be able to get their mindset changed in terms of that they can come and clean up, but they're okay, our kids are doing it. So somewhere it is their allowance which is allowing us also to help and change, but at the same time to get the kids in there to help out. So somewhere they want the change, and that is their way of showing support. So you got to take the cues, and it's a new project. It's a very big project, but it's gaining momentum, and we are getting a lot of support from the locals. They want the change. I mean, if I show you pictures, you'll be shocked.
Wow. When you say big project, like, give us a sense of how to, talk about the size of it in terms of the area or the number of people or the amount of waste, or.
God, I wish I had the numbers with me.
No worries. That's okay.
I would say it's about 2-3 lakh people living in the area, if I'm not mistaken. The age group, I would say, is 40 and below.
Okay.
I've not really encountered too many, above 50. They are, but I think the main age group is 40 and below. And I mean, the area must be at a size of a car.
Okay. Wow.
Yes, it's big.
So how do you identify where to go and where to start? I mean, do you need some kind of permissions, or do you just begin?
So I think because during COVID, we did a lot of food drives.
Okay.
We did that in line with the BMC.
Okay.
And I think because of that, I have a lot of support from the BMC. So permissions is never an issue, because they know that we are there to make an impact and create change, and they're very supportive. And I've worked with them now for many years. So that is never the issue for me. I find the main thing you have to identify is the people in that area ready for change? Because if they are not ready for change, no matter what you do, you can't bring. So you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped, right?
Sure.
So even with Kokri, the first thing we checked out is, do they want the change? And they did want change. They were, they were not happy with the kind of circumstance that they were in and how their children were being brought up. And they were very welcoming. So I think that's how we did it initially, and that's how we kind of locate what area to work in and how to make it.
I don't know if you talk about how much capital you've raised for the foundation. You don't have to talk about it, but just wondering. And when you work with local authorities, do they also invest? Do they co-invest? Okay, fine. I love that reaction. She's just like, what a joke. Right? I can cut that out later if you want to. She's just laughing. She's just like ridiculous. They have so much money. They have so much money.
I know they do. I'm so bad at being polite and lying. I'm too straight-faced as a person.
This will get you into trouble, so I will cut this out later. But tell me, because I'm curious to understand.
Like I said, I think I'm very lucky because I'm not from an NGO background. I've never really worked in the social sector. But we launched Ek Saath 4 years ago, just before the pandemic hit. So we launched in Feb, and then March the pandemic hit. So we had so many plans of what we wanted to do. We wanted tree plantations, beach cleanup, this, that, and all of a sudden, everything is shut down, and you're like, okay, what do we do? And somewhere, I think, when I saw what was happening around, I felt like, I can't just sit and do nothing.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are really struggling with food, and they're not getting paid. People are getting laid off. So somewhere I felt that, I got to do something. And I don't know how I got into it now, I'm looking back. But we started a food donation drive, which we started initially with ration. And then we started making cooked meals. And we were actually, I think it was us and Art of Living, that were the first people on ground distributing food. And I have no background in this. Don't ask me how I found the food vendors and how I had my spot boy from our film team out, delivering food. And, my Guy in the Sky team helping me out to make sure, it's done properly.
Yeah.
And somehow, I just put up a Keto link saying that, we are doing this because we want to help, and if you can help us help, please join in.
Yeah.
And I have noticed that in the past also, because I remember I had done it as a private person during the floods, where I reached out to my friends saying, I'm sending across some medical supply, do you want to join in? And a lot of people reached out, and we ended up sending a lot of medical supplies during the Kashmir floods. So I thought I'll do something similar, and I put that out, and that link actually went viral.
Oh, wow.
So that was the first time, and I remember, someone reaching out from Mr. Shah Rukh Khan's team saying that, he would like to support.
Lovely.
And then I had Godrej reaching out saying that they wanted to support. So something so small just reached out and snowballed into becoming something really big. So I think from day one, I've been extremely lucky that I've had the right kind of people supporting Ek Saath. And that just helps, because when they see that, okay, these people have been parts and supported Ek Saath, then we also want to join in.
Nice.
So I don't think funding has ever been a problem. It's, of course, it's not easy because it requires a lot of fund, like this Kokri project.
You probably have to keep it going.
You have to keep it going. I mean, that's a 500 crore project. It's not a small project, right? So, and wherever, it's tough to make ends meet.
That's
me and
huge.
Gattu always,
That's a very
chip
big
in.
project.
It's a huge project, and I've, it's a big responsibility because you're dealing with other people's money, and you're responsible for that. It's not just taking money is easy, but how are you, fair to that money and the people whose money it is? You're responsible and you're answerable at the end of the day. So for me, that is more important. And I think there has even been times where we have said no to money because we are like, we are
at the moment,
we can't take on more at this point. So I think in that aspect, we are very lucky that it's been a very smooth ride, and Abhishek has always been very gracious and stepped in whenever required and helped out. Personally, we don't like to talk about what we do in terms of philanthropy, but he has been very kind on multiple occasions whenever we've been like struggling. So it's been good, and I think I'm actually now at a place where I'm very excited for Ek and what we have in plan for Ek. So one of the other reasons why we called it Ek was because I did not want the Pragya Kapoor Foundation.
Right.
It's not about me, and it's not the legacy I want to leave ahead. Leave behind. Sorry, I want it to be for the people, by the people.
I've got goosebumps. No, it's just so lovely to meet you. You're one of our guests that I actually not met before today.
Yeah.
And I just feel like you've been so real and you're so committed to what you're doing, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, this kind of impact, this kind of work, and being true to it is not something that comes very naturally, and it's not something that's easy to do.
I think I have the right people. I have the right team. And I think that's what it's all about at the end of it. I would not be able to do it if they were not there every day working hard to make it happen. I'm just facilitating. I have a platform. I'm sharing it for anyone and everyone who wants to be a part of it. It's available. It's there, and we will help you as much as we can to create whatever change we can. And it's not always that you succeed, but the point is that you got to try and you got to do what you can. And Ek Saath for me was very clear, something that I wanted to leave behind. People not like I'll give you an example, and it might be my ignorance, but I don't know who started WWF. The World Wide Foundation. World Wild Foundation. I didn't know who started it, but it's there and it's impactful, and it's doing a lot of work, and that's what I felt for Ek Saath, that I don't want people to know who created it, but I want them to feel like they're a part of it. So it's bigger than me, and I hope that it survives me and can live and become an entity of its own. That's my hopes and wishes for it.
It will. I'm positive.
Thank you.
What's your relationship like with Abhishek? You've touched upon it. Did he fit into your 10-year plan?
He started my 10 years plan.
Tell us about this 10-year plan.
Oh wow. So it's a very random thing. I think I've always been a person who's been extremely ambitious. And I think it comes from the fact that I've always had a need to prove myself. It's been there from the beginning, being a girl, being, a brown person in a very white country. In fact, we were one of the few, like 2 or 3 brown families, Indian families that lived in that town. So I think I've always had this thing that I need to prove myself, and I think I continue to have that sense of need where I feel like, okay, I might have done this, but I need to do more. I had my first job when I was 13, and that's when I started earning, and I've never stopped post that. And I think somewhere when I met Abhishek, I felt that he's the person for me. But now we do have a very big age gap, and when you have a big age gap, you are in 2 different phases in life. Like, he is in a phase where he wants to settle down and start a family. I was in a phase where I wanted to, make an impact and, create my career. And that's how I was brought up. My dad was all about, you set up your career, you do what you want to do, be independent, and then, you find your partner and you settle down. So I remember very consciously taking this decision that, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have kids. And I'm going to work at the same time. And I was 24 when I got pregnant and got married and everything. And I knew that 25 I'm going to have my first child. And 10 years later, when that child is 10, I'm 35. By that time, I'm just going to work and take care of my kid for this entire duration. I'm going to have a second child 2 years later, ended up being 2 years, 9 months. And I'm just going to work extremely hard and I'm going to do it all. And I did for the longest time, and I was balancing it quite well. In fact, with my first son, I went back to work after 2 weeks.
Okay. Wow.
With my second one, I went back to work after like 3 hours. So
that's crazy. How did you do that?
I don't know. It was just, I'm very planned and very organized with my things and my thoughts, and I have to execute.
Did anyone try and stop you from going back to work, or were they surprised to see you on set?
I think my mother-in-law, she thought I was a bit crazy to always be on the roll, and my kid was with me wherever I go. I'll have in meetings.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, my office was like a nursery. And
whatever it takes, right?
Whatever it takes, man, you got to make it happen.
But when you look back, would you have done the same?
No.
Why not?
I would not. I think I was still lucky that I had kids at a very young age, and because of that had more energy. But I realized during the pandemic, especially because I was having 2 kids, I just launched my own NGO. I'm running a business, and then I invested in Brown Living. Everything is happening simultaneously. And online school started. And I think every mother out there knows what a torture that was. And when online school started, and I had a film rolling. So I was shooting as well, and we were doing our donation drives, and I had kids, and how do you schedule a meeting when you have online schooling and then you have kids? Like I remember once sitting in a meeting and I had a shoe flying at my face that my kid threw, and I was like, this is not working. So all my film meetings would happen after 10 p.m. and then 10 to 2 I was working on my films, and then you wake up at 6 in the morning with the kids, so I was just going crazy.
Not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. And I think by the time my film was done, I just hit the wall, and I had a burnout. And I think the realization for me was that you can have it all, but just not at the same time. And somewhere it's not important to have it at the same time. There are different phases that you're supposed to enjoy at different times, whichever you choose at whatever phase of your life, whatever you're ready with. But I think somewhere I felt like, if I did not have that need to prove myself to others and myself, I would have done it a little differently.
No, you've touched upon a nerve there, because I think most of us are driven by that desire to prove.
I think most women are, because no matter what people say today that, it's more equal and things are better for working women, it's still very, very far apart. And I noticed most of the time I'm the only girl in the room. A lot of times.
Actually, that's interesting. Is that in the space of Bollywood? Is that on the film sets, or is it across, even in the foundation?
I would say mainly in Bollywood.
Yeah.
There are very few women, especially women producers.
People don't talk about that enough.
Yeah, they don't.
There are a few discussions here and there, but I don't think it's become a movement in a sense the way you see in the US.
No, and I think it will take time, because I somewhere feel like, I don't know if I told you this, but did I tell you about the whole acting thing and how I decided to step away? Did we have that conversation?
Briefly, but tell us again. Yeah.
No, so my whole point of not pursuing acting was because I was not passionate about it, and I decided that I'll consciously make take a step back and, you know, create that opportunity for someone else. So I think men don't do that for women. You know, men never take this step aside and say that, why don't you lead, or why don't you go ahead, because they don't let go of that control. You know, they need that sense of control for them to feel like they are adding value, and then they're doing.
So you mean you have to fight for it?
Have to fight for it
because there's no space. But men might argue, for the sake of argument, that, you know, but why should we create the space? I have, you know, I deserve that opportunity on my merit.
What makes you deserve it more than anyone else? There is no reasoning for that. That's why I'm going back to what my mom told me, that you have to work 4 times harder than any other.
You think they get it a little easier just by virtue of, okay.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's like you ask a black man if a white man is privileged. They're going to say, yes, they are. You know, same thing. But, you know, you ask that same guy that, what about women? It's, you know, there's a gap, but they don't recognize that gap.
So is that, again, is it because there are just more men that are in the industry? Is it because there is prejudice against women in the industry?
No, I think there is just not enough space created. I think there are a lot of great female storytellers out there, but there are a lot of lack of confidence.
Okay.
Not only from the women wanting to tell the stories, but also the people facilitating the storytelling. You know, I'm 100% sure if I put a male filmmaker and a female filmmaker, 90% would choose the male filmmaker because they will feel more comfortable and secure and more, I would say, in sync.
Right.
And they would feel like they can trust that filmmaker much more than they would with a female filmmaker.
Even with the support that you have because your husband's in the industry, do you
I'm
still...
in a very privileged position.
Yeah.
Extremely privileged position. If I try to do what I have done without having my husband's support, there's no way. There are not many female producers out there who are successfully producing films. And I am very sure that there are many who wants to, but they just don't get the right opportunities to. So I'm in an extremely privileged space, and I acknowledge that. You know, I've been very lucky.
And I'm not saying that you have to be a flag bearer for everyone else, but is there a way in which one can, being in that position, also find a way to incorporate more women into those roles? It's not so different from in corporate India, right?
Yeah.
It's also about finding enough of a pipeline and...
No, I would like to.
Yeah.
And I hope in the future I would be in a position to do that. I do, you know, I have some really inspiring female producers who support me, who I learn so much for, and I hope that I'll be able to do that for other women in the future. Very dear friend of mine, Monisha Advani, Madhu, MA Entertainment. I mean, I love those women. I look up to them, and they are so inspiring and encouraging at the same time, and I truly appreciate the support that I get from them. So I know there is a community. I know there is a change about to happen, but I somewhere still feel like there is a gap.
So is there sometimes bias you face on set despite your position of privilege?
Yes.
Is that also, like you said, you're a woman, you're probably young.
Yeah, both.
You know, and then maybe there's a presumption because you're coming 100%. From a certain privilege.
Yes to everything. And I think it also depends on who you talk to on a set, right? If I'm talking to, you know, my setting workers, I have to speak in a certain way. And actually, no, it's men across. Sorry, I take that back.
Okay.
I feel a lot of times I have to dumb myself down to get work happening.
You know, it's really interesting you're talking about this, because I think that stereotypes exist and they need to be broken. And I think a lot of people would assume, maybe not seeing enough of you, enough of you out there on the set or being talked about on the set, that maybe, okay, she's just there.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm always on set. So I've never had that thing, but I do notice a lot that it's, there is first a doubt.
Yeah.
And they want to play that doubt against me and kind of see there's always some sort of a play. Every time you meet a new person, trying to figure out where
they
you are,
don't know
right?
how much you are actually the authority they need to respond
and how much
to.
you know.
Yes.
And then as they realize, of course, it changes. But a lot of times with men, I have realized, and I'm not saying all men.
Yes.
I'm not saying all of you. Some of you.
Yes.
A lot of times I have to go like, I didn't understand. Can you explain it to me? You know.
Is that just to pacify their ego, or
just to get work done?
Just to get work
because
done.
I don't have the time to explain to you that I matter. I know I matter. If you are not evolved enough to understand, it's your problem, it's your evolution, it's your understanding. You will at some point reach that point where you understand, but it's not my job to teach you. I don't have the time. I have somewhere else to go.
Right.
And but the moment I reach there, you will automatically realize what you had and what you were dealing with. So sometimes I just find like you got to get work done, and then it's just better. Like I've had this happening to me where I've said, let's do this way. And the other person have gone like, but why don't we do it this way? And I said, that's exactly what I said.
Oh,
you
God,
know?
yeah.
And then I was like, let's do it
at
your
its
way.
best, yeah. Oh my God, you've taken the words out of my mouth. I've been there.
So it's there.
I think everyone's been at the back end of mansplaining.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just like, okay, it's fine. I don't have the time or the energy. It's for you to evolve yourself and understand, you know, where it should be. And I think especially Indian men have been brought up a certain way, and it's not their fault. It is how they have been brought up. It's what they have seen. It's the environment that's around them. Yeah. And I think we are all responsible for that. So to blame someone, you know, and then of course it is for that person to then evolve and make those changes, but it's very hard. When you have been given, you know, the authority or a chair to you know, of control and power, to leave that, it's very hard. It's very hard to make space for other people because you feel like you're letting go of control. And it's not an easy thing to do, which is why I think a lot of men struggle with it. Not all.
I love this. Call it out as it is.
And and I mean, I have 2 kids. I have 2 sons.
Yeah.
And I'm very particular in the way I'm bringing them up. And because it's not, you know, a lot of people focus on how they bring up their daughters.
Yeah.
I feel as a mother of 2 boys, I have a lot more responsibility into making sure I am, you know, bringing up 2 secure, confident men who are comfortable with women thriving, you know. That's my responsibility. Yeah. And I think that's the only way you'll see the change. I had that with my father and my mother at home, you know, where I have 2 brothers. And I was always put above my brothers to make them understand that, you know, she's not your equal, she's better than you. You know? Amazing. Yes. So I've always been brought up with a sense of security that I can lead, I can create. My mother also, she's a leader, she's someone I majorly look up to because she comes from a small village in India at a time where women empowerment was not even a thing or a word or something you would relate to, but she was leading her village, so to say, you know, which is highly inspiring, and they let her because they could see that she had that quality. And I think I get it from her, a lot of it.
Pragya, there's so much to discuss with you. I think we'll have to do, you know, round 2, we'll have to do part 2. We didn't even get to talking about brown living, but for those of you who want to look it up, it's also a platform for businesses that are into sustainable ventures.
Supporting a lot of women artisans, you know, working with grassroots women in villages, creating job opportunities at the same time, you know, being a sustainable e-commerce site. It's something that I'm, you know, very proud of. Chetsi is the founder. She runs it, also a woman founder. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you create those opportunities where you can, right? And she's lovely, she's doing a great job, and I'm very happy to support it in whatever capacity I can whenever she needs me.
Wonderful. I hope to see you succeed to to far greater heights in all that you choose to do, both in your production work as well as your philanthropic work. And it's been really wonderful chatting with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.